I've heard you say love doesn't hurt. Explain, explain that to me.
Listen. You cannot be doing the same thing at the same time. Love is not painful by definition. Enduring something for love is painful. Enduring something in the hopes of getting love is painful. Enduring things to have the potential down the road for love is what's painful. Abandoning yourself in the hopes of receiving love, right? The things that we do are often like the admission ticket, the cost in the hopes of getting love. But here's the thing, love is all around you. It is, are you choosing love, or are you choosing who you want to perform something that feels like love for you? They are very different things, and love doesn't hurt. So if you're sitting in a relationship with somebody who you're sad, who you feel lonely, who doesn't listen to you, who you feel unseen or unworthy with, that is not love. That's not even you loving yourself. And so we have to be very clear about what love is and what love isn't. And we have to ask ourselves more than anything, am I committed to an experience that I want? No matter what, am I prioritizing that experience? Am I prioritizing choosing people who want that experience? Am I prioritizing people who are living that experience, who are invested in that experience, who are creating that experience? Or am I committed to the potential to have that experience? Or even more often, am I committed without even realizing it to the experiences that will never create love, but this is what I believe I'm deserving of? We do that so often.
So what do you think in situations then when somebody says, let's say they've deceived you and they've maybe cheated on you, and they're like, oh, I love you and this was just a mistake. That love, that can be very confusing, because it can really obviously hurt and deceive, and your trust is broken, but then they're still saying, I love you.
Well, I think infidelity is very different. And again, it goes back to us not understanding how things happen. It is absolutely possible for me to love you and to make selfish choices that take care of me that are going to hurt you. I can love you, but do acts that will not be loving acts that wound you. And so when somebody says, yes, I cheated, I made a bad choice, and usually they don't say I made a bad choice, they say I made a mistake. No, you didn't make a mistake. You did absolutely what you wanted to do in that moment with no regard for what this consequence would be, or you thought, even if this happens, we'll still be able to figure it out, and whatever the consequences are that come, I can deal with that. Right? So we have to be very clear on that.
Yeah, can you actually just differentiate I love this, the difference between a mistake then and a bad choice?
Yeah, a mistake is like, I did one thing thinking that something was going to happen that didn't happen, right? I made a mistake, like I walked across the carpet and accidentally got my heel stuck in the carpet and I fell. I made the mistake of walking in the wrong place. I couldn't have calculated what was going to happen. I wasn't expecting a particular outcome. Me cheating is a bad choice in that it causes negative consequences in my relationship. But I already knew what those consequences had the potential to be. I knew exactly what it was that I was doing. It is me prioritizing one need over another. In that moment, I was choosing to feel desired. In that moment, I was choosing the lust that I felt for that person. In that moment, I was choosing the excitement that came with that. It is the way that we prioritize feelings. And oftentimes people wind up cheating because they have not done the work to understand what their own unmet needs are. And then they're no match for those needs to have the potential to get met in a potential situation. So if I have really unmet needs around being needed or being abandoned or being less than or unworthy, and that's a really intense need that sits in me as a wound, and then someone comes in and makes me feel really desired, or that they really need me and don't want to be without me, all of a sudden that hole gets filled by that need. And so I reprioritize. That need is stronger in that moment than commitment. That need is stronger in that moment than love. that need is screaming the loudest, and that's the need that needs to be filled, because that's going to give me relief. I'll deal with the guilt and shame and all of that later on, if I ever have to.
And what's the difference then between making the wrong choice, I was about to say mistake, but making the wrong choice, and then actually sincerely being sorry for it and making a change, versus then somebody who then maybe love bombs you because they've done this and they're trying to bring you back into that relationship? Where can we start to identify what's authentic? And then also, is there some sort of guide that you suggest on either rebuilding trust or making a decision to exit that relationship?
Yeah, well, love bombing is kind of different. Love bombing is a technique that people use in order to isolate you. When you first start dating, they act like you are the best thing since sliced bread. They can't get enough of you. They are all about you in ways that are so suffocating that you almost can't breathe, as a means for them to say, this is all that you need. I'm going to be everything for you. I need you to drop everything that you're doing to come over here. And then once I have you isolated, then I'm going to show you the real me. That's different. But what often happens in the honeymoon stages after infidelity is that the partner tries to step up to hit every single point that they believe, now we're back to the representative, every single point that they believe they need to hit that will make you happy. Anything they've ever heard you talk about, they want to fulfill it. You talked about trips for 20 years. Now you're going on 5 trips. They talked about dinner every weekend. Now they're taking you to dinner every night. You talked about, why won't you ever buy me gifts? They're bringing you a gift home every day. They're trying to do things in this reparation or reparative stage in order to get you back to a space that says, fine, I'll forgive you. I'll reinvest. I will recommit. I will not leave you. So we're back to the statistics now, right? That probability. I'm going to hit all the things in order to make you now tell yourself a story, whatever story you have to tell yourself that's going to make you comfortable with staying and staying reinvested in our relationship. The problem with that is that it never addresses the issue that led the person to cheat. We get so caught up in the behavior, you cheated on me. You violated our relationship. We never get focused on the why. What was the need that was at the bottom of that fundamentally that made you willing to sacrifice all of this? Because even if we stay together, we will never be the same again. And now we have a choice. Will we never be the same again and be less than who we were, but continue on in relationship? Or will we figure out the why and heal that, so now we can have the relationship that we fantasized about and that maybe we, or at least I, thought that we were in? And so the cheating in and of itself is not the issue. It is what drove the person to cheat. Do they have an understanding of that? Have they resolved that? Are they aware of it? How will they manage that as they go forward? How will they communicate with you in ways that make you feel safe and let you know with confidence that the cheating will never happen again? Because really, the cheating is a coping strategy. The cheating is what they do as a result of having the need. What do we do about the need? And if they can't give you a clear answer and the two of you work on a clear plan that holds them accountable, that they have to take the lead on, they have to be responsible for, they have to show and prove constantly that they are managing that and they are aware of that, then it's destined to happen over and over, because that need will remain unfulfilled.
So what about being the person maybe that has had them been cheated on? There's always that trust element where I think a lot of people end up second guessing themselves again, because maybe there were signs that they ignored. And then there's a problem, at least from what I hear from my audience, where it's like they don't either know how to trust themselves again to either recognize the signs, or they leave that relationship and they no longer can trust anybody.
Yeah.
And so, I read a comment on one of my episodes the other day, which, guys, by the way, I read every comment, so please always comment. I do love them. One person replied and they're like, so the takeaway is to just never trust anybody, and that way you won't get hurt.
Oh no, it's don't put your trust in the wrong people. Don't put your trust in in people who are not trustworthy. The problem, though, is that what we do when we go into the next relationship is that we project what we experienced. Right. And I was laughing about some things that I saw on social media, and it was like laughing to keep from crying because these two young women were having a conversation about married men and about the number of married men who are just out here just humiliating their wives in the streets with all of these women that they're dealing with. And they were like, these men are tricking these women off. Yeah, men are really garbage. I feel sorry for their wives. And that's why I won't get married one day maybe, but no time soon. And so everybody was talking about the men and everybody was talking about the wives. But I was really concerned about what that means for the woman who has that experience over and over, who chooses that life over and over, because that is what bakes in her core belief about men. And it's not every man, it's the men that she's choosing. So then if and when she finally does decide to try to get married later on, she winds up bringing all that into the relationship and believing that this is who he is because of all the men that she chose. And so it becomes very important for us to recognize that when somebody cheats, it's not necessarily about us. It is about them. But we have to be aware, how did I navigate their cheating? What did I learn about myself, about my boundaries, about how I show up, about how I advocate for me? What did I learn about my decision making? What did I learn about my own needs? How do I feel about the choice that I make, whether I choose to stay, whether I choose to go? How do I then participate in my relationship and where we go from here? And so it's really about realizing that your relationships are constantly reflecting back to you where you are. What was happening with my partner prior to this? Is this the first instance of them cheating? What didn't I know? What does that tell me about our relationship? What does that tell me about how they feel like they can communicate, about what they will communicate, about the space that we make for communication? Have we even ever had conversations around infidelity? Have we had conversations about what our rules would be for how we manage attraction to other people? Do we even talk about the reality that we may find ourselves attracted to other people? How do we demystify that? How do we take some of the energy and the secrecy and all the excitement away from that by being able to bring that to say, hey, listen, I'm feeling this way about somebody. Whoa, okay. Well, let's talk about that. Why are you feeling that? What is it about that person or about the dynamic between the two of you? Is that something that's missing here in our relationship? Is that something that's unfulfilled in you? Is that something that we need to address here within our relationship? And the minute that you start to make these actual problems that have the ability to be solved, as opposed to dealing with the behavior, everything changes. Everything changes.
God, you just hit me with those questions. How many people do you think are honest about finding other people attractive when you're in a relationship? And then how personally would you feel, Spirit, if your husband came and said that to you, like, I'm really finding this other person attractive? If you're confident, then maybe you're able to sit with your partner and say, oh, well, what is it that maybe we're missing? Like, or maybe it's, oh, cool, okay, you find her hot. Like my husband, because I really want like a nice firm booty. Yes. Like I'm always looking at other women's asses and I'm just like, babe, what do you think about her ass? And I have zero jealousy or anything like that. But I've worked really hard on making sure that I build my confidence. And so I could just imagine though, in a relationship where maybe you don't feel great or maybe your relationship is a little fractured, if you had your partner coming to say to you like, hey, I really find her ass attractive, that could potentially be a trigger for you and an insecurity.
Yeah. See, to me, that's where the work is, though. That's what tells me what work I have to do. That's my relationship giving me an opportunity to heal. Now, is it going to feel good if I'm broken or if I feel inadequate or if that's like a pressure point for me? No. But what am I doing about the pressure point before that moment so we don't have those issues, right? And then am I projecting that onto my partner because I feel insecure, now I'm mad at you that you are having a healthy response, like am I the only person ever for the rest of our lives that you're going to be attracted to? I would be a fool to think that. Relationships and being in relationship don't mean that you're never going to be attracted to someone else. It means you're going to manage that attraction in healthy ways that prioritize your relationship and honor the commitments that you make. That doesn't mean I'm never going to find you sexually attractive, or I'm not going to be intellectually stimulated by someone, or I'm not going to be spiritually stimulated by someone, or I'm not going to enjoy doing these activities with someone else. It simply means that there is a time and a place for that, and those times and places will never sit in the same space as the times and places and spaces and honor that I give to my primary relationship. So it wouldn't bother me if my husband comes and goes, damn, something about her is just really like, we have a really strong chemistry. Well, that's kind of science. You know, you're going to be feeling that for other people. Do you want to act on it is the question. And my husband will tell you 20,000 times over, babe, what we have here is so incredible. We've worked for this. Blood, sweat, and tears have sacrificed and poured into this, and what we know about each other and how we live into each other. That moment is not worth losing that. Even if we stay together, losing what it is, changing it by that choice is not worth it. And so that's where you want to be in a relationship. I really believe it's not about fooling yourself into believing that your partner will never be drawn to anybody else. And it doesn't mean that them being drawn to anybody else is always sexual or that they want to act it out sexually. It's not always those things. But it is about recognizing, do we prioritize our relationship in such a way that to honor this is not an obligation. It's not an obligation. It is a want. Right? Like in the same way, my husband, look at you, look at us. We could go out if we wanted to today and go pick up whoever we want to today. There is no doubt in my mind that we couldn't pick something up out there in these streets if we wanted to, right? But there's a reason that we don't want to, right? And it's not even an option. It's not something that's like, oh, I got to work hard not to look. Oh, I got to work hard not to. It is, yeah, he's really handsome. Okay, so as you were saying, right? And there's a reason for that. It's not something that you struggle with. It is because the quality of what you built means so much to you that anything else is obsolete.
I love that so much, and that idea is really, I think, helped me build my confidence instead of my insecurity, because in thinking through, okay, there's what, 7.5 billion people in the world. Are you really thinking that you're the only one that's going to be either your partner's going to be attracted to?
Come on, Lisa. Come on.
And I find it even more romantic, though, Spirit, to think that there's 7.5 billion people and yet we choose each other. Like knowing that I can find maybe a billion other people more attractive, or that he can find a billion people more attractive than me, like more attractive, not even I'm saying on the same level. But yet, in spite of all of that, we choose to spend our life with each other. That to me is actually more romantic, harder, and more valuable.
Yeah, because I think when you recognize that your relationship, that your presence and your commitment and your giving in a relationship is a gift that you give to your partner and to yourself every day. Like when you think about how tremendous that you choose each other every day, that what you have means so much to you every day, that is a gift. And when you can position yourself in such a way that says, I want to make sure that that remains, I want to make sure that that grows, what can I do to even intensify that, right? When that becomes the goal, your relationship just exponentially continues to get better. But it has to be something that you're oriented to. The quality of your relationship is something that you have to be oriented to. And if the quality of your relationship is not what you want it to be, then what actively do you and they have to be doing simultaneously and with consistency to get it to that place? And those are questions that you have to be asking. You can't just be in a relationship. You can't just be doing relationship. That's a verb. That's an action. And part of that action means we have to have a plan. Otherwise, we are just navigating, making the mistakes, making the bad choices. How invested are you in creating and bringing to fruition the fantasy that you say you want to be your reality?
I love that. And as you're looking at the quality of your relationship that you're currently in, where does like contempt and resentment, they start to build over time. I don't think people even sometimes realize they have contempt for their partner or resentment.
For sure.
Whether it's they're cheating and now you're forgiving them and going back to that relationship and you're secretly just holding something against them, or just contempt is just built over time.
Yeah. And I think it's important to recognize when you haven't forgiven somebody in that space. There's a difference between I'm going back to you and I've actually forgiven you. And you can sit in relationship with somebody and never forgive them. You can also have a really good relationship and say, I still haven't forgiven you for that. Resentment and contempt is something different. That is disdain. That is a repulsion. That is it is repelling me. Instead of me being drawn to you, it is repelling me from you. And so I think it's really important for us in my relationship personally, there's no room for that. And so we have set really firm ground rules very early in our relationship. And then I'm constantly learning. I tell my clients all the time, you're a gift that you give to me because I learn how not to do certain things. I'm constantly reminded how it's not the big things that fracture relationships. It's the little splinters over time that weaken it, and then it doesn't have the foundation to stay standing, right? Those things are important. And so for us, we have things like, for example, we have the 90-day rule. We do not bring up things with each other after 90 days. And we've been this way for decades now, right? So it does two things. One, it means I'm not keeping a running list of all of the offenses in our relationship, because it's really not fair. If I want to be with you forever, am I really going to hold you to the things you did to me in our 20s and our 30s, and now we're in our 40s, moving towards our 50s? I'm still going to be mad at you about those things. How does that hold you hostage? How does that hold me hostage? And how does that stifle our relationship? But it also holds us accountable to working through the problems. If I'm feeling something, I need to say it. And if I can't say it today because I need time to work on it or to process it or to make it make sense, or even to just let some of the intensity of the sting and the emotions kind of settle before I talk about it, then we have the place and the space. We'll work on that. But we will not go back to what happened 6 months ago. I will not defend myself for something that I said 2 years ago. I will not weaponize something against you that happened 5 years ago. Because what is the growth in that? But even more importantly, what can you do about that? And oftentimes when we do that, that's a coping strategy that we don't even realize. What we're trying to do is get something else. And so the real goal is to focus on what we want now. You're bringing that up for what in this moment? We're back to needs. You said that in order to have me think or feel or do what now? So then don't talk to me about what happened then. Talk to me about what you're needing now. What is it that you want to hear from me? What is it that you need to know from me? Let's get into what you need now, because that's affecting where you're trying to go. Now we're back to your picture. What is the story that you're telling yourself? That you're using that to illustrate or demonstrate or remind or hold on to for what reason? And so oftentimes we'll bring up old transgressions because we want to let them know, I haven't forgotten. Because we want to make sure they know that we're still on guard, that we're still watching, we're still suspicious, I still don't trust you, right? But you want to let them know that for what reason? Really, you want to let them know that so that they don't do it again. So instead of talking about what you did to me, how do we talk about, how do I know with certainty that you won't do that to me again? Do you think about what you did to me? Do you know how it affects me? Do you know what my struggles are now? Do you know how this is affecting our relationship? Do you know what my feelings are? The embarrassment or the shame or the lack of worth? Do you know how this is causing me to feel? And if you do know, why aren't you responding to me in a way that is going to heal that? We get so caught up in the things and the transgressions and the offenses that we never get to the things that will make our relationships better. We never get to the things that will heal us. We never get to the things that will cause us to actually turn the fantasies of relationships that we desire into reality. And oftentimes it's because we never learned how. We don't know how to do it.
Okay, so the 90-day rule, that was so good. I'm so implementing that. So the 90-day rule, what else can we do?
You know, I think it's about being intentional about the kind of relationship that you want, right? So I think about some of our rules, which now they don't seem like rules, they're just ways that we do things. But since we're having this conversation, I think we have uniquely between us 2 kisses. So if you ever see me in the streets, you'll notice that my husband and I, we always kiss each other twice. And it came out of a joke. He used to tell me that his grandfather, when his grandmother was upset, she would always kind of put him out or he would leave. And when he came back, he would know, hey, I have to kiss you, but I have to kiss you more than once, because he was kind of superstitious. He believed that something bad would happen if he didn't give her these 2 kisses. So every time my husband leaves, I'm always like, hey, 1 kiss because you love me, and then 1 for luck. Right? So we have these 2 kisses. I think the other thing, though, it becomes about what kinds of things will help us to create the relationship that we want. Right? So part of also about the kisses for us, for example, I never wanted us to lose the intimacy in our relationship. It's so important, but it's so easy to do. You get lost in the kids, you get lost in work, you get lost in parents and life and business and all of that. And so I always wanted us to make sure that we never leave the house without kissing each other goodbye. Right? We just absolutely have to, because life, you get called, okay, I gotta go, gotta run. And so it was kind of like, okay, so you got to kiss me before you leave. I got to kiss you before I leave. And we would have days where we would jump in the car, get halfway down the street, and the other person will see the phone and go, oh my gosh, I forgot. Okay. Hey. Oh, where are you? Halfway down the street. Oh, so you left the house. Oh, so you're not gonna, I'm turning around now. Right? And in the moment, it seems so trivial that most people would go, well, why don't you just, they're already gone. Like, why not wait until the next time? Because the next time it's just as likely to happen. And then all of a sudden it didn't happen twice. It happened every day this week. And then it happened every day this month. And all of a sudden we no longer kiss. We no longer have the things where we said intimacy and physical connection was important to us because we made excuses. We prioritize this. They'll understand. I'll get it right next time. It is the consistency. It is the things that you do over and over. We also have what we call the 30-second hug, and I make this face. It drives me crazy because it has become the bane of my existence. We implemented it really early in our relationship. It was about being able to reconnect. Right? And if you do something long enough, there is a moment like when you're frustrated with each other that if you have physical connection, you cannot stay mad at a person. So somewhere around 15 seconds, 20 seconds in, you can feel your bodies kind of melt into each other and go, and it just helps you get centered. So whenever we are feeling disconnected, one of us has the right to be able to ask for the 30-second hug no matter what. And it's kind of like, I don't want to. I'm usually the one that doesn't want to.
Interesting.
Yes,
why is that?
because I am, when it comes to fight, flight, or freeze, I am fight. I am always in that space that the first thing that I want to do is pull away. That is my nature. And so when I get worked up, it is, give me a second.
The last thing you want is to hug.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my husband will go, oh, bring it in, bring it. And I'm like, give me a second. He's like, no. Are you going to break the rule? Are you going to be the one that breaks the rule? And it's like, fine, I'm going to hug you.
Now, do you still do it knowing that it's the right thing to do for your marriage? Because
Absolutely.
as you know, obviously tongue-in-cheek joking about it's the bane of your existence.
Yes.
Where's that fine line between, okay, but I do it because I know it actually works, versus I really freaking hate this, I wish we would stop, and now you're building resentment for your husband,
no.
where he makes you hug him.
Yeah, no, it's not that at all. I don't hate it. It is, what I have learned is that usually what is the hardest to do in a moment is what's needed the most. And if you are a person who is used to pulling away, if you are a person who's hyper independent, if you're a person who's experienced trauma or who has come to believe when the chips are down, all I got is me. If you're that person, then relying on somebody or having them see you vulnerable or having them in that space of intimacy with you in places where you're triggered can be very difficult. So what I know is when it is the hardest to do something, if it's hard for me to say I love you, then you probably need to hear it, and I probably need to be connecting to the love that I feel for you in this moment. If I don't want to, why? Because what is it that I want to be feeling? And then that's a conversation. I want to be mad at you. I want to feel disdain for you. I want to resent you. Why do I want to resent you? And do I want to resent you, or do I want you to be different? I'm resenting you because you're hurting me. So do I want to resent you, or do I want you to stop hurting me? Okay, so now how do I put down the resentment? Because the hurt is the problem that needs the solution. You have to be committed to the future that you say that you want. And it's not enough for it to just be in your head as a fantasy. It has to be actionable. It has to be behavioral. And it has to be consistent.
If you enjoyed that, then make sure that you click right here, right now, so that you can enjoy the full episode. So many of us may go on a date and we're like, oh my God, this is the one. And you really think that they tick all the boxes, but then a year down the line,